A few months ago, we tried the impossible challenge with a goalkeeper. 17. Last season, I didn't even realise. Last season, he scored more goals than he conceded. That actually wasn't the challenge, though, although it was still rather impressive. It was instead to try and win the Ballon d'Or. And I think I found the perfect candidate to try this again with. Of course, with the help of our new wheel that we can learn from last time, and your comments that kindly suggested explaining other ways we might actually be able to do this. Now, clearly, last time we did quite a good job because we came runners-up. I think we came third a couple of times as well, but we didn't lift the Ballon d'Or. However, your suggestions were correct. Maybe I neglected international football, as I do quite often in Football Manager, and that does play a big part in the Ballon d'Or selection. So our player now, although he is Angolan, is technically also Portuguese and could play for Portugal, which I think would stand a better chance than what Belgium did in Football Manager. And so the first thing we did before ever spinning the wheel was, unfortunately for African football, change his first nation from Angola to Portugal. The reason I picked Sergio Manuel, however, is that he is already very good, had fantastic hidden attributes, including potential, and has a high professionalism and sportsmanship, which again is all things that the wheel can also change and help with too. And with the first spin of the wheel will be exactly what we will be changing for season number 1. Maximum professionalism should help him develop faster into a better player, and sportsmanship is apparently really good for being selected for awards. Now, we're not going to spin the wheel every single season, and in fact, because he's only 15, I think we go 3 years into the future. Wait till he's 18 before we spin the wheel again, and we can really make an impact into his career, because right now, he's just going to be settling in the Porto under-19s. He's not going to be getting any first-team football for a long time. So let's just let him develop, and when he's 18 we can spin the wheel again, and that's when we can really dive deep into his career, including taking control of both the club he's at and hopefully, when he's capped, Portugal as well. As the 3 seasons went on, Manuel was getting lots of games for Porto B side and developing really well. But another spin of the wheel, and something that we definitely wanted early on is exactly what we got. +3 to all sweeper keeper attributes, which is all these attributes highlighted on screen from selecting a sweeper keeper. So adding +3 to all of them will make a big difference. Now that they have all been improved, you can see how it turns him right away into a quality player. But the last thing we have to do is alter his current ability to match his new attributes, which puts him in the 150s as a current ability player already. Now, I'm not going to jump in just yet and become the manager and see what we can do. I think we just allow his career to kind of take its own path the next couple of seasons, maybe even the 2 seasons after that, if he seems to be absolutely fine. And we'll do a couple more wheel spins after each couple of seasons, and then we can make a decision. Right, are we going to move him club? Are we then going to take over? Are we then going to really dive deep and try and win the Ballon d'Or? Because he's only 18 right now, so let's go until he's 20 years old and see how much his career changes from that one wheel spin. This summer, Sergio actually moved clubs, and he went to Italy to play first team football. And it was with one of Italy's biggest clubs in Juventus, in a big £31 million move, and a good move too, as he kept 17 clean sheets. No trophies though, as they finished in 3rd place in the Serie A. A not so good year in terms of clean sheets followed, but he did save an important penalty in a shootout to help Juventus win the Coppa Italia. But it's time to spin the wheel again after 2 seasons at Juventus, and it's another really advantageous spin this early in his career as we max out his consistency and important matches to 20. Which you won't see a massive difference in terms of attributes, but can certainly help performances on the pitch improve, which could lead to a higher average rating. I still think it's a little bit too early for me to take full control. He's still playing football, he's still going to develop either way, and right now he's not going to be in contention for a Ballon d'Or. That obviously comes later down the line. Speaking of which, I've got something to show you because this is crazy. Now, I thought I'd have a quick look at the Ballon d'Or winners just to see what the lay of the land was, and no surprise, Bukayo Saka, who's quite good, tends to win it quite often, Kylian Mbappe, Florian Wirtz. Who's Hamza Ngame? Agamane? Moroccan striker. He's a real player. He's a real player who starts off the game, I think, at Rangers, and seems to be unbelievable. Now, I don't really know. I've never really heard of him whatsoever. Apparently, when this database was created, it's his first season at Rangers. He's just moved. He must have a very good potential of 167, which he has reached, by the way, and put in some unbelievable seasons, including 26 goals in 26 games for Bayern Munich, who bought him for £61 million from Rangers, and he's won a Ballon d'Or. Yes, he looks fantastic. Is he going to be this good in real life and in FM26? Probably not. He's probably one of the players that in the updated database that I use from FM Inside, they took a gamble on and decided we need to give him a higher potential. That's outrageous though still. Another season under Brendan Rodgers at Juventus, and it was another Coppa Italia win as they beat Roma 3-2 in the final. And it was another decent season in terms of clean sheets, but nothing spectacular as Sergio is slowly getting better each season and is now at 169 current ability. But this summer was an interesting one, and it's a World Cup year and Portugal have qualified. And there was one big problem for Sergio, the current Portuguese goalkeeper Diogo Costa. The Portuguese number one is still in his prime and keeping Sergio Manuel out of the lineup for now. Which is a shame in a way because Portugal were all the way to the final and defeated the Netherlands 2-1. And as much as that's frustrating because you're like, well, come on Luke, if you were in charge of Portugal, you could have played Sergio. They might not necessarily have won anything, and to be honest, he isn't doing anything career-wise just yet to be able to actually win the Ballon d'Or. So it's still early days. We still got loads of World Cups, at least 2, where I can actually take control, and he could potentially win another World Cup. And of course, we need to start actually getting him scoring some goals, which played a big effect last time. Another season at Juventus followed, and they nearly won a trophy in the Europa League. So although it says World Cup winners, he never played a single minute, but the upside is that the growth is definitely visible looking at his attributes, and the current ability is now venturing into the low 170s. But that is when the best potential spin of the wheel we could finally get came into play, as we can now set him to 200 current ability out of 200. And we are now looking at the world's best goalkeeper with the highest current ability in the game at 200. I think we need to see how this impacts Juventus' next season because right now Inter Milan is far too strong for them. In fact, we let things go for 2 seasons and Juventus and still Brendan Rodgers finally found league success, beating Inter Milan in a playoff for first place after both sides finished on 83 points in the Serie A. Now, since then, there have been 4 Ballon d'Or winners from 4 different clubs. So choosing what club Sergio goes to next is a bit of a tough decision. However, the best decision that you can make today is making sure that you're subscribed to the Mega Luke channel. It's time for another spin of the wheel, and this one finally made me realise it's time to step in and take control, as he is now fantastic at free kicks and penalties. So we're just about to reach his prime age for goalkeeping years. He's 24 years of age, and now he is fantastic at set pieces, which now means we can, of course, getting on those set pieces, taking free kicks, taking penalties, scoring goals, as well as keeping them out. So the AI doesn't like doing that automatically, which means we have to take control. And I decided to do that at Juventus for now. I'm sorry, Brendan Rodgers, but let's give him a try at the Italian champions before moving him elsewhere and see what he can do with us in charge. However, I need to do something I don't think I have ever done, and definitely not for a year at least, in Football Manager, and take on international management as I become the manager of Portugal. And the setup has begun as we make Sergio Manuel the first choice free kick taker for the squad, as well as, of course, the number 1 penalty taker as well. Shockingly, Sergio wasn't even in the squad for the last Portuguese side, but he'll be playing a much bigger role now in the team than he did before. And this is where the fun begins, because Sergio became Juve's 4th top scorer this season with 12 goals through free kicks and penalties across the year. And Juventus won the league quite comfortably, although he didn't win the Golden Glove this season. However, it was a World Cup year. And Sergio scored 2 goals for Portugal already as they topped their qualifying group to go into the tournament. And they also have a rather easy group that I think Sergio might be looking to score some goals against already. And that is exactly what he did in the opening game against Paraguay, as well as the winner in the round of 16 in extra time against Norway. And after wins in the quarterfinal against France and the semi-final against the USA, Sergio now plays in Portugal's second consecutive World Cup final against Croatia. This Croatian side is very good and they scored just 9 minutes into the match, but eventually Portugal found their foot in the game and scored 3 goals before half-time, which meant we could comfortably be winning this World Cup, but Manuel wasn't having the best of games, which isn't ideal. Kenda then scored a 4th late on and the game was now over, with Portugal being crowned world champions again, and this time Sergio was a key part of it, or at least a starting player. So would a World Cup and a Serie A title be enough for the best goalkeeper in the world to win a Ballon d'Or? Well, not this year anyway, as Jude Bellingham picks up the award at Manchester City. And the bad news is that this season I was also sacked from my job at Juventus after poor performance in the Serie A. Spin of the wheel then, and there is a chance to replay the whole season. However, this time round we aren't so fortunate. Either way, changing Manuel's height and jump reach will help again in little steps, but I think it's time we move him away from Italy. And after searching across Europe, I noticed PSG have a great squad, but neither of their goalkeepers are very good. Plus, it's a job that you can kind of guarantee we won't get sacked from because it's almost harder not to win the league. And so we became the manager, and Sergio Manuel will be joining us as a combined package. Not to mention that the rest of the team is absolutely disgusting, and we should automatically be favourites to win the Champions League every year. It's time for the Euros though, and another chance for him to shine on the international stage. Manuel scored the winner in the first group stage game in the 95th minute, which kicked Portugal onto the top of the group to win 3 games from 3. And they progressed through against Czechia and Turkey into the semi-finals against Norway, where a 3-1 win takes him to the finals against Spain. A showdown against their rivals led by prime Lamine Yamal, who of course was the man to open the scoring just 7 minutes into the match. Thankfully for Portugal, we were able to not only come back, but to make sure we take the lead on the 34th minute with goals from Costa and Mendes. Mendes scored again and we were kicking off the second half with a 3-1 lead, only for Spain to score from that kickoff at the near post. Mendes ended up scoring a hat-trick to secure the 4-2 win for Portugal, which might work in favour for him over Sergio, who we were hoping would stand out more in the tournament, but either way, he can celebrate lifting an international trophy again before his season at PSG. The Ballon d'Or this year featured 2 PSG players in Barcosis and Evan Ferguson, which is a good and a bad sign. It's good because it means that we're in the forefront and we could win a Ballon d'Or with our goalkeeper. You know, PSG are winning things. But it's bad because, well, it means that he might get overshadowed. No matter what they win this season, he might get overshadowed by Barcosis or Evan Ferguson either way. And that proved to be true, as Sergio was also part of the most dominant season of his career, as PSG completed the monumentous treble, finishing in the Champions League final with a win over Manchester City. A final that Manuel played amazing throughout. And he scored 7 league goals while keeping 16 clean sheets. It was another Ballon d'Or win for Barcosis, which gives the Greek 3 in a row, with Varela coming in 3rd behind Yamal. This season though was when the free kick mastery was showcased. There were still many penalties, but Sergio Manuel scored plenty amazing free kicks this season, and yet again another fantastic year for PSG. It was another Champions League win, but just the runners-up in the French Cup. And he won back-to-back Golden Gloves as well. It's just still not the Ballon d'Or. It's another wheel spin though, and at this point either is good, but it ends up landing on replay a season, which we can bank and use should when we wish. Another World Cup year for Sergio and Portugal though, and after sailing through the group stage with 3 wins, the plan backfired against Chile in the first knockout match, as Portugal fell behind and Sergio missed the penalty to even it up, knocking Portugal out. The next 2 years followed with disappointment as Sergio was still not nominated for the Ballon d'Or award, despite winning many major awards such as the World Golden Glove for the 4th season in a row. His goal record for PSG since joining 5 years ago was getting better throughout as double figures in the last 2 years. And of course, the final wheel spin allows us to up his reputation to the maximum it could be. Which, considering the maximum is numbered at 10,000, he wasn't far off already. So I hope now for Sergio is that, well, we've got roughly about 7 seasons, I guess, until he will be considering retirement, maybe even less. We've just got to really hope he does well domestically and internationally without really the limelight being taken away from obviously some of his amazing teammates at PSG, which is obviously easier said than done, but with the amount of goals and sometimes assists, you just never know. In the meantime, I had also been sacked as the manager of Portugal, so I had to reappoint myself this time round, because we had ourselves another European Championship that we could win. And so far so good, until they reached France in the quarterfinals, shocking everyone with a 5-1 win to go on to meet England in the semis. But that's where the tournament came to an end for Portugal and Sergio, who's now the captain. Another season underway and another Ballon d'Or award ceremony where Sergio was shunned. This time as well, there was no PSG players in the top 3, while Sergio was picking up yet again the Golden Glove. This season included a couple of corking free kick goals as Sergio bagged 11 in total throughout the campaign. But it was a rather disappointing one with just the league title being won. But I didn't want to use that lifeline just yet, and I decided to carry on through for another season. Another year being shunned at the Ballon d'Or, but a 6th season on the bounce being chosen as the World Golden Glove winner. And this time, a much better season in general as PSG beat Atletico Madrid in the Champions League final 1-0, which is the perfect preparation for a World Cup with Portugal. And Sergio had a great group stage, scoring 2 goals as Portugal topped the group with 3 wins. And this Portuguese side is brilliant, and I found it so easy to get to the semi-final to face Italy. Getting to the final after beating them 3-1 after falling behind just on the 6th minute. Our opponents in the final was Mexico though, and Sergio, I think, became the first ever goalkeeper to score in a World Cup final, dispatching a penalty in the second half, which almost killed the game off until Mexico scored in stoppage time, but then Portugal scored a third to lift the trophy. World champions and Champions League winner for Sergio Manuel in one season, which tells me this could be the perfect opportunity to be named as the Ballon d'Or winner. But the problem is, Cardoso Varela is also Portuguese and also plays for PSG, and he claims the Ballon d'Or while Sergio isn't nominated yet again, but picks up his 7th Golden Glove in a row. And after being snubbed completely the following year, our opportunities are running out. Sergio missed a huge chance in 2044 with a last-minute penalty being the decider in the Champions League final against Arsenal. Especially when you consider this is 2024, which means he's got another shot at the Euros. Saving 2 penalties in the shootouts of the quarter-finals against Bulgaria, as well as scoring his own to win the tie. To then saving the first 2 penalties against Germany to progress through the semi-finals and into the final, where Portugal won easy against the Netherlands to be crowned European champions again. But it was another snub for the man who continued to be voted as the best goalkeeper in the world. And at age 36, you start to wonder if it's just too late for a man with so many accolades and trophies. But with a bad injury, Sergio missed the final of the Champions League, meaning PSG were forced to play a terrible goalkeeper in goal and lose on penalties. But I had one last roll of the dice. We've got to use our replayer season. We've only got 1 season left. Maybe I should have used it earlier, and that's on me. But this is our only real opportunity. PSG have the team to get to the final. Sergio couldn't make the final. It just seems right we use it for this season. But this time it was worse as PSG only reached the quarterfinals before AC Milan knocked them out and Sergio had a stinker. They still managed a domestic double, but that's not enough to get him nominated, as we know. And so we go again, hoping Sergio doesn't call it a day just yet, and he continues playing. His numbers were still amazing, almost scoring the same amount as he conceded one season in 33 games. But a tough one, missing out of the chance of a treble because of the Rats of Rennes knocked us out of the Champions League. However, there is something to celebrate about this season. And that is the fact that at age 36, Sergio Manuel is finally recognised in the Ballon d'Or as he finishes second. And that, to be honest, is some achievement at that age. I mean, appearances, 53, only conceding 24 and keeping 37 clean sheets. His average rating was a 7.44. We know behind the scenes of that season, the goals were silly. He got 10 goals, only conceding 11. Across the whole season, he got 18 goals with 24 conceded. So with 38 clean sheets. So, I mean, it's such a shame we haven't had this in his earlier years because, I mean, he's only got either this season or next before he decides to pack it in and retire. But Sergio Manuel at age 36, coming second in the Ballon d'Or, is still some achievement. There was still time for one more World Cup, however, and Sergio not only scored in the group stage, but he missed a penalty there too. Remember though, Portugal have been so dominant in the World Cup the last 20 years. And in the second round, he missed another penalty in a massive kick clash against Guinea-Bissau. But then he made up for it by saving not one, not two, but 3 penalties in the penalty shootout to progress. He then kept clean sheets against Scotland in the round of 16, the Dutch in the quarterfinals, and the Italians in the semis. Meaning it's another World Cup final for Portugal. And weirdly enough, it's a final against Mikel Arteta's England, who do have a good side, but it's written in the stars for Sergio to have one more big performance and put his name in the hat to lift the Ballon d'Or. And after a quiet first half, Sergio is called into action to make a big save, only for the corner after to lead to a deflective shot that found its way past Sergio in goal. He was keeping everything else out that he could and keeping it alive for Portugal. And they kept on fighting into stoppage time with just a minute left on the clock and on the break after an England attack, and the ball finally was slipped through and smashed into the back of the net. However, the striker did look offside and the VAR check confirmed that was the case, disallowing the goal. And that unfortunately was too late for Portugal. Sergio then had to watch, in heartbreaking fashion, the opposition goalkeeper lift the World Cup right at the end of his career. But at least he didn't headbutt anyone, I guess. And it was back to being snubbed in the Ballon d'Or awards ceremony. And at age 38, Sergio Manuel announced his retirement from the beautiful game, winning the Champions League in dramatic fashion in his final ever match. A 5-time Champions League winner, 2 times European champion, and technically a 3-time World Cup winner as well, but only ever a single runners-up in the Ballon d'Or. A big thank you for tuning in. Please make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss FM26 content when that drops, where we attempt this challenge yet again, I imagine. And on the screen is our last challenge versus my dad of FM24. So we take on the Super League, climbing from tier 3 all the way to the top. And you can watch that video right now.